The movie begins with a breathtaking sequence on a primordial Earth-like planet. A large humanoid alien being known as an engineer stands alone near a waterfall. The engineer drinks a mysterious black liquid, which begins to break down his body at a molecular level. As the engineer disintegrates, his DNA falls into the water, triggering the creation of life. The film then shifts to Isle of Skye, Scotland, in 2089, where two archaeologists, Dr. Elizabeth Shaw and Dr. Charlie Holloway, discover a cave painting that depicts humans worshipping large beings pointing toward a cluster of stars. The painting is similar to others found in ancient civilizations across the world. Shaw and Holloway interpret the paintings as an invitation from the engineers, beings they believe created humanity. The couple hypothesizes that these star maps are an invitation for humans to find their creators. After this discovery, the scene jumps forward to the year 2093. The crew of the spaceship Prometheus is en route to a distant moon named LV-223, which orbits a planet in the star system depicted in the ancient paintings. The crew has been in hypersleep during their 2-year journey. The ship is on a mission financed by the wealthy and mysterious Peter Weyland, founder of Weyland Corporation, who hopes to uncover the secrets of humanity's origins. As the crew wakes from hypersleep, they are greeted by the ship's android, David, who has been active the entire time, maintaining the ship and learning languages. David is an integral part of the mission and displays a keen interest in human behavior, although his detached, almost childlike curiosity hints at a hidden agenda. We meet Meredith Vickers, a no-nonsense stern corporate overseer for Weyland Corporation. She is in charge of ensuring the mission's objectives are met, but it becomes clear early on that Vickers is more focused on corporate interests than the crew's quest for knowledge. After the crew wakes up, Shaw and Holloway explain the purpose of the mission during a briefing. Using holograms, they present the theory that the star map they discovered in ancient Earth civilizations is an invitation from the engineers, the beings they believe created human life. Shaw is especially driven by her faith and desire to understand where humanity came from, while Holloway is more skeptical and driven by scientific curiosity. Vickers is dismissive of their theories but allows the mission to proceed. Her skepticism and cold demeanor suggest tension between her and the more idealistic scientists. As the Prometheus reaches its destination, the crew gets their first look at LV-223, a desolate and stormy moon. The ship's captain, Janek, pilots the vessel into the moon's atmosphere, where they discover several massive artificial structures that resemble temples or pyramids. The sight of these enormous structures fills the crew with awe and excitement, as it confirms that an advanced civilization once inhabited the moon. This discovery propels the crew to begin their exploration of the structures, believing that they might uncover answers about the engineers and humanity's origins. After landing on LV-223, the crew suits up and heads out to explore one of the massive, artificial structures they saw from the ship. Inside, they discover a vast network of tunnels and chambers, indicating a highly advanced alien civilization. The group includes Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, Dr. Charlie Holloway, David the android, Fifield, the geologist, Milburn, the biologist, and other crew members. Their goal is to find evidence of the engineers and to determine whether they created humanity. As the team ventures deeper into the structure, they notice that the air inside the building is breathable, unlike the moon's surface. This discovery raises further questions about who or what might have created the atmosphere and the structure itself. David secretly deactivates certain security systems inside the structure, suggesting he might have his own agenda beyond simply assisting the human crew. His subtle actions imply that he's aware of more than he's letting on. The crew stumbles upon a room filled with large stone cylinders, and in the center of the room is a giant humanoid engineer's head. Surrounding the head are strange murals and hieroglyphic-like inscriptions. The room has an eerie, temple-like atmosphere. David carefully examines the stone cylinders, which begin to leak a mysterious black liquid when exposed to the presence of humans. This black liquid will become a key element of the story as its properties are not fully understood yet but are clearly dangerous and transformative. While the rest of the team is focused on gathering samples, David stealthily collects a vial of the black liquid for himself. He seems intrigued by its properties, though he doesn't share his discovery with the crew. His actions suggest that he has secret orders, possibly from Peter Weyland, the elderly founder of Weyland Corporation. David's curiosity and motivations become increasingly ambiguous as he conducts his own experiments with the black liquid, testing its effects on living organisms. While they are still inside the structure, a violent storm hits the moon's surface, threatening the safety of the crew. The captain, Janek, orders everyone to return to the ship immediately. As the storm worsens, Shaw and Holloway manage to bring back the severed engineer's head as a sample, but they are forced to leave the room filled with the black liquid and stone cylinders behind. However, Fifield and Milburn get lost inside the structure and are left behind when the rest of the team returns to the Prometheus. Back on the Prometheus, Shaw and her team examine the engineer's head in the ship's laboratory. Through a series of tests, they discover that the engineer's DNA is almost identical to human DNA, confirming Shaw's theory that humans were created by these beings. However, during the examination, the head begins to decay rapidly and eventually explodes, emitting strange gases and black liquid. This marks the first major indication of the volatile and dangerous nature of the biological elements the crew has encountered. Meanwhile, David conducts his own secret experiment by deliberately infecting Charlie Holloway with a small dose of the black liquid. He spikes Holloway's drink during a private conversation. Holloway, unaware of what has happened, drinks the liquid. David seems to be testing the effects of the black liquid on humans, perhaps under orders from Wayland. His cold, emotionless demeanor makes it difficult to tell whether he has any empathy for Holloway or the rest of the crew. Back inside the alien structure, Fifield and Milburn, who are still stranded, encounter strange life forms. They come across snake-like creatures, called hammerpedes, that seem to have been affected by the black liquid. One of these creatures attacks Milburn, wrapping itself around his arm and breaking it. As Milburn struggles, Fifield tries to help but is also attacked by one of the creatures. The hammerpede releases corrosive acid that melts Fifield's helmet. This marks the beginning of the direct encounters with alien life forms, showing the dangerous and unpredictable nature of the black liquid's influence. Elsewhere, after being infected with the black liquid, Holloway starts showing signs of illness. He becomes feverish, and black veins begin to appear on his face and body. It's clear that something is wrong, and his condition rapidly worsens. Despite Shaw's concern for him, Holloway is reluctant to go back to the ship's medbay, believing that the alien discovery is more important. However, his infection soon becomes too severe to ignore. He tries to hide the extent of his symptoms from the crew, but Dr. Elizabeth Shaw quickly realizes that something is seriously wrong. Shaw, who deeply cares for Holloway, is worried about his worsening condition and urges him to seek help, but Holloway downplays it at first. While the crew is busy dealing with Holloway's infection and the dangers within the alien structure, David continues his own exploration. He discovers a secret control room deep inside the structure, which contains advanced alien technology. David activates a holographic playback of the engineers, showing them operating the ship's navigation system. The hologram reveals that the engineers were planning to launch their ship, and it hints at the dangerous power of their technology. David also finds a cryostasis pod containing the body of a live engineer. This discovery confirms that at least one engineer survived whatever catastrophe wiped out the rest of them. David seems particularly interested in what this engineer could reveal about the origins of humanity. Elsewhere, Holloway's infection continues to worsen rapidly, and it becomes clear that he is beyond saving. His physical deterioration becomes horrifying, with his body showing severe symptoms of the alien infection. His skin is peeling, and his veins are turning black. As the crew rushes to return to the Prometheus, Captain Janik and Meredith Vickers become aware of Holloway's condition. When they arrive at the ship, Vickers refuses to let Holloway back aboard, fearing he could infect the rest of the crew. In a heartbreaking moment, Holloway, knowing that he is beyond saving, asks Shaw to let him go. Realizing that there's no hope for him, Holloway sacrifices himself by stepping towards Vickers, who uses a flamethrower to incinerate him. Shaw is devastated by the loss of her partner and struggles to cope with the emotional toll. After Holloway's death, Shaw experiences her own disturbing symptoms. She begins to suffer from severe abdominal pain and discovers that she is pregnant, despite the fact that she was previously infertile and unable to have children. Shaw is horrified by this discovery, especially given that she and Holloway had been intimate shortly before his death, but this pregnancy is clearly unnatural. The pregnancy develops at an unnaturally fast rate, indicating that she is not carrying a human child but some kind of alien organism. Shaw desperately seeks medical assistance, but the crew is preoccupied with other concerns, and she quickly realizes that no one is fully aware of the danger she is in. Shaw takes matters into her own hands, heading to an automated surgical pod located in Meredith Vickers' private quarters. She programs the pod to perform an emergency C-section to remove the rapidly growing alien organism inside her. In a gruesome and intense scene, Shaw undergoes the surgery while fully conscious. The pod cuts into her abdomen, and the alien creature, resembling a squid-like organism, is extracted from her body. She narrowly escapes the pod and manages to seal the creature inside. She is left physically weakened and traumatized by the experience but survives. After her self-surgery, Shaw confronts David, who has been continuing his investigation into the engineers' control room. David reveals that the engineers were planning to travel to Earth, but their intentions were not benevolent. He explains that the black liquid is a biological weapon that the engineers created, and their ultimate goal was to wipe out humanity. The discovery leaves Shaw devastated, as it upends her belief that the engineers were benevolent creators. Meanwhile, Peter Wayland, is secretly aboard the Prometheus. Wayland believes that the engineers hold the key to immortality, and he has been orchestrating the mission to find a way to extend his own life. Elsewhere, Fifield, who was exposed to the black liquid earlier, returns to the Prometheus, but he has been mutated into a monstrous, aggressive creature. His transformation is a result of the black liquid's unpredictable and dangerous effects on living organisms. In a violent rampage, Fifield attacks several crew members, unaliving them before finally being subdued by the remaining crew. His transformation serves as a warning of the dangers posed by the black liquid and the unpredictable outcomes of tampering with the alien biotechnology. Later, Wayland assembles a small team to accompany him to the alien ship, including David, Shaw, and several security personnel. The group suits up and heads out in one of the Prometheus's exploration vehicles, navigating the harsh and eerie landscape of LV-223. Meredith tries to convince her father not to go through with the meeting, warning him that it could be dangerous and that he is risking his life. However, Wayland dismisses her concerns, firmly believing that the engineers will grant him the immortality he seeks. The group arrives at the engineer's ship and heads to the central control room where David had previously uncovered the stasis pod containing the last surviving engineer. The control room is massive, filled with the same intricate technology seen earlier, including the navigation holograms and the star map. David, using the knowledge he gained from studying the alien technology, activates the controls to wake the engineer from his long sleep. The stasis pod opens slowly, revealing the imposing figure of the engineer, a towering humanoid being with pale skin and an almost godlike presence. David approaches the engineer and attempts to communicate with him. Speaking in the engineer's language, David conveys Wayland's request for immortality. Wayland, frail and near death, asks David to tell the engineer that he wants to live longer, believing that the engineers have the power to grant him eternal life. Without speaking, the engineer attacks the crew, starting by grabbing David by the throat and ripping his head off. Even though David is an android and does not die, his headless body is left crumpled on the floor. David's severed head continues to function and communicate, but his physical form is destroyed. Shaw, witnessing the violent confrontation, is horrified by the engineer's reaction and the death of Wayland. She quickly realizes that the engineers are not benevolent creators, but rather have a darker agenda, one that involves the destruction of humanity. After unaliving the humans, the engineer goes to the ship's control panel to continue his mission. David had previously discovered that the engineers were preparing to launch their ship to Earth, carrying the black liquid that would act as a biological weapon to wipe out humanity. The engineer begins preparing the ship for takeoff, intending to complete the mission that was interrupted thousands of years ago. Shaw realizes that the engineer intends to launch the alien ship, which contains the deadly black liquid, a biological weapon designed to annihilate humanity. The ship is set to head towards Earth, and if it reaches the planet, it could cause mass extinction. With limited time, Shaw runs back to the Prometheus to warn the remaining crew, including Captain Janek, about the impending danger. Shaw tells them that they must do everything in their power to prevent the engineer from reaching Earth. Janek, realizing the gravity of the situation, makes the decision to sacrifice himself and the Prometheus to stop the alien vessel. Shaw urges him to act quickly. Janek, along with his two co-pilots, Chance and Ravel, decide to pilot the Prometheus directly into the engineer's ship to prevent it from launching. As the engineer's ship rises into the air, Janek and his team steer the Prometheus on a collision course with the alien vessel. The Prometheus crashes into the engineer's ship at high speed, resulting in a massive explosion that destroys the Prometheus and severely damages the engineer's ship, forcing it to crash back to the ground. Janek, Chance and Ravel die in the collision, but their sacrifice prevents the engineer from leaving the planet and saves Earth from the biological weapon. Shaw survives the crash but is left alone in the wreckage. She quickly realizes that the engineer is still alive and determined to complete his mission. The engineer emerges from the wreckage of the ship and comes after her, intending to unalive her. Shaw, desperate and with no weapons, manages to make her way to Vickers's escape pod, which contains a medical bay. Inside the pod, she finds the creature she surgically removed earlier. A large, squid-like alien that has now grown to a massive size. As the engineer enters the escape pod, Shaw releases the alien creature. The creature attacks the engineer, wrapping its tentacles around him and overpowering him. In a brutal struggle, the alien forces itself down the engineer's throat, eventually incapacitating and unaliving him. With the engineer dead and the immediate threat neutralized, Shaw is left as the sole survivor of the mission. She retrieves the still functioning severed head of David, who continues to communicate with her, despite his body being destroyed. Shaw, emotionally and physically exhausted, refuses to give up. She asks David if there are any other engineer ships on the planet, and David confirms that there are. Rather than returning to Earth, Shaw decides to continue her search for answers about the engineers and why they created humanity, only to later seek to destroy it. Make sure to like and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time, see you soon.